Hello and welcome back to Carkeh's channel. I am bringing you another review because the most popular video I've ever done was my Dota 2 review, and it seems to have generated quite a bit of popularity, so I thought I'd give you another review. I might do this on a more regular basis, but it all depends on time constraints. Past year's been really busy for me and it's just been hell, so I'm going to give you videos while I can, and I wish I could have a regular upload schedule, but I don't know if anyone's going to see this video already. But without further ado, this is Final Fantasy XIV. This is a game that I love. Some of you may know Final Fantasy XIV for being a huge flop as it was the first time around. It was released as what is now known as 1.0, and it was basically a pre-alpha stage that was released to the public, and a lot of people complained, and it was a very hectic game. I didn't personally play it, but I heard it was absolutely horrendous. There were a lot of problems, nothing worked properly, and you were lucky to reach level 20 at any point because it was that terribly done. Since its huge flop in late 2010, this has been dubbed A Realm Reborn. Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn is a fantastic kind of remake name if you want to re-envision everything that happens in it. You know, it's got the same storyline and everything, but it's a whole new game built around the same story, and it is a fantastic way to fix things. A lot of people entered it with skepticism and stuff, but I think it's definitely made up for its failures in the past. I hope Square Enix can keep this quality up, because if they can, the next game they go on to make, I will definitely be buying. I personally never played a Final Fantasy XIV game before this, and I want to go and I want to play every single Final Fantasy if they weren't like 20 years out of date. But without further ado, I will introduce you to the class system that is available in Final Fantasy XIV. First up, I will show you how the class system works in Final Fantasy XIV. There are a total of 8 standard classes that you would imagine would be in any video game, and these are split up into 2 sections. There are the Disciples of War and the Disciples of Magic. As you can imagine, Disciples of War focus on things like melee classes. There is an Archer, however, which is a ranged class, but these deal physical damage, whereas Disciples of Magic deal ranged magical damage. Disciples of War include Lancer, which later becomes a Dragoon, Gladiator, which later becomes a Paladin, Pugilist into a Monk, Archer into a Bard, and Marauder into a Warrior. Whereas on the Disciples of Magic side of things, there's a Thaumaturge, which turns into a Black Mage, a Conjurer, which turns into a White Mage, and the Arcanist, which is the only class in Final Fantasy XIV that can become 2 different jobs later on at level 30. That's a Summoner and a Scholar. There are also trade skill classes in Final Fantasy XIV. There are the Disciples of the Hand, which are your crafting classes. There are a total of 8 of those, and that includes things like blacksmiths, leatherworkers, culinarians, and things like that. Whereas, on the other hand, there are Disciples of the Land as well, which are miners, botanists, and fishers. You cannot choose one of these as your primary class. So when you go through character select and stuff, when you create your first character, you cannot choose one of these as your primary class. However, you can, as soon as you log in, you can become one of them either way. So you could level to maximum level with that. However, you cannot play that in PvE content, so you cannot play that against in instances and stuff. These do not classify as just trade skilling. Next up, I'll show you how to change class in Final Fantasy XIV. It's a very easy process, and much like in Guild Wars 2, your weapon depends on what skills you got. No, sorry, your skills depend on what weapon you've got equipped. In Final Fantasy XIV, your class is dependent on what weapon you have equipped. So if I go in here and I equip an axe, I become a Marauder. Now, the way to easily change class all the time is you have gear sets, and I can sit here, I can turn into a Gladiator from here, which is using a sword in my main hand. I can turn back into my White Mage, which has my staff equipped. I can turn to a Marauder, which has got a 2-handed axe equipped. I can then turn to an Arcanist, which has a Lexicon. Oh, sorry, it's a Grimoire equipped. The great thing about Final Fantasy XIV's class system is that you can change class at any point, but you can also have every single class on one character. You never need to create ults, which is fantastic for storyline progression, which is actually what this game is all about. Whilst Final Fantasy XIV might be an MMO at its heart, there are other people playing it, and it is a multi-massive online role-playing game. It is still a role-playing game at its heart. It has a fantastic storyline, as you would expect from any Final Fantasy game, and the story is just a very strong core of the game. And there are a lot of fantastic cinematics and stuff, so you don't really want to be repeating this stuff later on, because it is the same story throughout, but it's still a very good story. You never need to create any ults, which is great, and I can have everything that I want on this one character. I could have every trade skill, I could have every offensive class, I could do anything I wanted to. You can also job crystals, so jobs that you get later on, once you reach level 30 on a class, you then have to reach another class of 15, a respective class. So say I wanted to be a white mage, which is what I am as a main, I had to reach level 30 as a conjurer, so that's my main class, and level 15 as an arcanist. And I only increase my XP on the conjurer side of things, but the arcanist is a supporting class that helps me get my job crystal for a white mage. So yeah, basically as a bit of a summary to the entire class system in Final Fantasy XIV, it's a very strong class system and it allows for a lot of flexibility. I can play as anything I want right now. If I got bored of white mage, which is what my main class is, I could at any point just switch over and play something else. I don't need to create another character. I don't have to go through the storyline or anything to progress, because a lot of things are tied to the storyline, like dungeons. They're all tied to the storyline. You can't do dungeons without doing the prerequisite storyline. So yeah, all in all, I would definitely give the Final Fantasy class system a solid 8 or 9 out of 10 overall. I'd give it a good 4 stars out of 5, and I think it's a very strong system, and I definitely like it. Next I want to talk to you about dungeons and a thing called guild tests. Guild tests are basically 4-player challenges that are about 5 to 10 minutes long, and they offer high XP and high gil, which is the currency, rewards for first time completion. And these can range from boss fights and intuitive mechanics to the attack on enemy strongholds, anything like that. And they're fun little things that you can do throughout leveling, and you unlock them at different stages. You unlock the first few at level 10, then level 15, I think there's one at level 20, I've got one at 25, there's none at 30 that I know of, but there are lots of different things that you can just to keep you interested in, to help you level up your subclasses behind your main one. In Final Fantasy XIV, a lot of the dungeons are tied to the main storyline. Not all of them, but a vast majority of them are tied directly to the storyline, so something happens and you have to go into a dungeon to find it. Like in the Thousand Walls of Toto-Rak, which is the footage you're seeing right now, so there's some pre-events to it and someone ends up in there and you have to go and rescue them or whatever, and this basically whole dungeon leads up to that. It's important to note that I said a majority have story behind them, because some of them don't, and you just unlock them when you reach the right level. This is because you can't have that many dungeons that are tied in with the storyline, because otherwise it gets very samey, which I think Square Enix has done a good job of making things different, keeping things interesting, making sure it doesn't become stagnant. You don't get the same thing happening all the time. Like, I'd be annoyed if I had to keep on going in here and rescuing someone because, you know, they're an idiot and they just wander into dungeons with loads of weird creatures. Like, these are plants that are attacking me that got whips and stuff. I mean, I'd be really annoyed if someone kept on walking into places like this and I'd have to rescue them all the time. So they do a good job of making things different and interesting. Another way that they keep things fun and interesting is by having different dungeon mechanics. Like in the one you're seeing now in Thousand Walls of Toto-Rak, you have to collect photo cells in order to activate altars, which will allow you to progress further into the dungeon. Now, this is kind of interesting and fun, because I think that it's just something that has to happen in order to stop things from becoming very samey, very dull and uninteresting, which is what a lot of dungeons became in World of Warcraft. You just went in there, you killed some bosses, and that was all you did. There was nothing to keep you there. Like in this, in a minute, we will find that we haven't got enough photo cells to activate the next altar, and we end up having to run like 20 minutes behind us. No, it's not really 20 minutes, it's probably like 5. But we had to double back on ourselves is the point. We had to go back and realise where we'd gone wrong, rather than just going, oh look, the next boss, herder, let's kill it. You know, we couldn't do that. Look, here we are, not enough photo cells, and we have to run all the way back. We just went to find an area that we didn't even need to go down in order to progress further, and this stops it from being very linear. This creates diversity in dungeons and makes things way more interesting and way more fun. And they also do this by putting lots of treasure chests in little rooms off by the sides. Now this is cool because you can find rare items in there. They could be just like silver or tin pieces which sell for money, and it's just something that's really quite interesting and neat. I think it's really good. I think Square Enix has done a good job at that, to keep dungeons interesting and to keep them from becoming dull, uninteresting, boring, anything you want to call it. It just makes things, gives you a purpose to actually explore in the dungeon, rather than, oh, let's get to the last boss so I can get my tokens or whatever, and we'll never talk to each other again. It's also important to note that there is no cross-realm dungeon finder in this. It's all on the one server. It's a party of 2 DPS, 1 tank, 1 healer, and you all have to be on the same realm, which is quite, I'd say it's annoying more than anything, because DPS queues are an hour plus at the moment, for no matter what level range you are. Max level, level 15 when you get your first dungeon, anything like that, DPS queues are an hour plus, and it's really killing things at the moment. I'd love to play a DPS, but I just get instant queues as a healer, so why would I go DPS when I can get instant queues? It just makes no sense. So I'd I'd say that's definitely something that needs to be changed. There's also a couple of other things that need to be changed, but nothing that really that bad or desperate in dungeons. I think what they've done in dungeons is actually fantastic so far from what I've seen, and I can't wait to reach max level. I'm only 31 at the moment, but I can't wait to reach that level where things become even more interesting and become incredibly difficult. Because a lot of the max level stuff from what I've seen, the hard modes, is incredibly difficult, and it looks very enjoyable, and I'll keep you updated on that one. I'd also like to note that they do this really cool thing that you probably just saw there. As you run through, a trap activates, sucks the front 2 people in, and then cuts the last 2 people off with a spider web. That's what the premises is. I mean, you can obviously all run through at once and not get cut off by it enough to not have to worry about the spider web, but it's kind of fun. I didn't even know it was going to happen when I first ran through there, and I was sitting in the back behind this spider web while the tank was getting killed, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? Oh my god, what is this? And it's just, I think it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. I think it's something that just makes the game more interesting. It makes it more difficult. That about sums it up for dungeons, guys. I'm going to leave you with the last boss fight in the Thousand Walls of Toto-Rak, which is the level 24 dungeon, and enjoy the footage. The boss fight's not that interesting, nothing really happens, but because it's a low level dungeon you wouldn't really expect any fantastic mechanics in this. But the dungeons overall are quite good. I would give them a good maybe a 8 out of 10 from what I've seen, mainly because I haven't had that many dungeons, because I don't do much of the solo quest as a healer, because it's very tedious and makes me want to kill a small kitten. But other than that, I think the dungeons are fantastic. There's a lot of very different things. If I give this an 8 out of 10, I'd definitely give World of Warcraft dungeons 3 out of 10 maybe. If it was Cataclysm when it first came out, dungeons, I'd give them a 9 out of 10 because of the difficulty, but this definitely scales a lot better in terms of fun and enjoyment and everything. So I'll see you on the next section. Right, so now I'll talk to you about the Fate system. Fates are full active time events and are akin to the system of rifts and events that you've seen. So rifts from Rift and events in Guild Wars 2. There's this one over here. This one's a boss fight against a giant crab, I think it is. And basically you just kill the crab, you get XP for it, you get tokens towards your Grand Company and stuff like that. And it's just one of the well, it's not really a unique thing anymore, it's just one of the events that you have in this. It's one of the fastest ways to get XP, along with things like hunt logs and whatever. But basically it's just, this one is just kill the crab. As you can see, the progress goes up at the lower the health of the crab, and that's really all there is to this one. It's quite a simple one. There's a cone attack, but that's really it, to be honest. Not much to say about it. Fates, as I said, the Fates are the quickest way to level up in Final Fantasy XIV. There are, I'd say about 4 or 5 different types of Fates. There's collection, boss fights, like that one. I don't know how I just got silver. There's collection, boss fights, there's assault on castles and stuff, and different bases, and there's also escort ones. They're the ones I've seen. There's also extermination ones. There's one that spawns over here occasionally, where you have to drive a bunch of dodos out. You just have to kill their holes and stuff like that. It's different things you have to do. But other than that, the Fate system really isn't anything unique, and it's stuff we've all seen before in different games. Now, I've talked about a lot of the cool things that Final Fantasy XIV offers. Now I want to talk about some of the bad things that are happening in the game and a lot of the negatives and things that are issues for me personally as a gamer. Firstly, I wanted to talk about the fact that there's no cross-realm duty finder. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about dungeons. This is a huge problem because there are absolutely staggering queues of an hour plus for DPS. It's absolutely ridiculous at the moment. I hope they will implement it later on in the game. It's something that I really want at the moment rather than later on. I understand it's not exactly a priority for a release feature. Things are other issues which I will talk about in just a second, but no cross-realm duty finder is a huge hindrance if you want to level the DPS, especially things you can't progress with your story quest unless you do those dungeons when it comes up to that, so that's a huge issue. Next up, just a bit of a quality of a life mention really. There is no auto dismount, which is a pain in the backside, because when you come up to a mob and go to start combat, normally in World of Warcraft, if you're standing still, you try to cast a spell or you're attacked or something, it dismounts you, so auto dismount. However, it doesn't in this, and you have to manually click your buff, or you have to have on your hotbar, you have to have your chocobo, which is your mount, and you have to click it again. It's just a pain in the backside, so I'd like a quality of life change in that I'd like an auto dismount feature. I know it's not exactly priority, seeing as, you know, there's other issues which are more prevalent, but it's definitely something that I'd like, as well as the duty finder. Two other quality of life issues that I'd like it included would be like a colorblind mode for obviously people who are colorblind, especially prevalent in dungeons, because a lot of the area of effect abilities are really difficult to see if you're colorblind. I've known a couple of people who are having issues with this and actually struggle to avoid the area of effect damage and have to be told using a headset that there is something that they need to move out of, so that's obviously something I want changed. And also the fact that you can't untrack quests. My dear god, is it annoying. As you can see in the video, I have quest tracking all the way down my screen. It goes off my page and everything. You can't untrack quests. They are there. So if you switch class and you're leveling a different class, they're still there. You can't change that. That is there. You can't get rid of it. It's annoying and I want it gone or changed or included or whatever you want to call it. It's just something I want. Next I want to talk about tab targeting. Tab targeting is exactly what it sounds. You press tab, it targets the next mob. It sucks a huge D in Final Fantasy XIV. It doesn't cycle through the same mobs in the same pattern. It makes it up as it goes along. I think it's set to target nearest target rather than target next target, and it's really annoying. And also, as you're going to see now on your screen, in Satasha, there is a fence you can't target mobs over. I didn't even know this. I was sitting there for ages like, why can't I target this mob? I was spamming tag, tab, and you can't click on them with your mouse or anything. And I found this out the hard way. I was like, why can't I hit anything? What is this? And it's annoying as anything. That is definitely not something that should be there. If your camera is over the fence while your character's on the other side, you can't target anything. Why is that a feature? Who thought that this would be a good idea to leave in the game? Someone must have picked this up somewhere along the beta testing, because there is no way that this would make it into a final game if proper beta testing was done. This should be an issue that was removed in alpha stages, if I'm completely honest, and whilst it's not exactly the biggest of a deal, you just move your camera, it's bloody annoying. Also, as a bit of a final mention, I think that threat generation from healing is too great. If you AoE heal in a dungeon as a conjurer at low level, you are more than likely to grab aggro off the tank, because the tank's threat generation is lower than what your healing actually generates, and it's quite annoying. I mean, I know that it's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to watch what how much you're healing, and you don't overdo it. I can't help but heal. If there are 3 people in the party taking damage, I need to AoE heal, otherwise someone's going to die. Why does that instantly grab threat from everything? There's not enough AoE threat abilities for tanks, and you generate more threat with your heals than a tank does. I'd also like to just address the server issue. I know this is something that a lot of people complain about me mentioning and stuff. Square Enix have addressed the issue of the server logins, but you used to spend hours upon hours waiting to log in, to the point where people actually made scripted macros to spam the login button because queues were just ridiculous. The thing about the login system is that it doesn't put you into a long queue like it would on World of Warcraft if your server was full. Instead, it makes you sit there and spam the button to log in again, because otherwise you bounce in, you log in, it says server is world is full, and then you bounce back out and you have to go start, click on your character, log in again in some endless cycle, and you have to be there to do it. And I understand it's an idea of a random selection so that people don't queue, go have dinner or whatever and end up sitting on in game, but there is no AFK function in the game, and it's terrible. It makes logins terrible. Square Enix have addressed the issue, admittedly, and are working on it and have increased server capacity greatly and even opened some new worlds in the past few days, but it's something that needs to be fixed. I contemplated not subbing after my first month. The first month is free, but I'm really tempted to not sub as much as I like the game because of these login issues. Square Enix are working hard on it, and if they keep that work up, I will definitely sub after the first month, even if I just sub for 1 month, to thank them for their ability to actually solve the issues that have been addressed. All in all, I think Final Fantasy XIV is a fantastic game. It does have its issues, but it also has some very good strengths. I should be subbing after this first free month that I get, but it all depends on the issues that I have raised. Unless these are addressed, I might not sub after the first month, and this is a big thing that Square Enix needs to do, especially with the server capacity and implementing an AFK feature that auto boots you if you've been AFK for too long. Because people just AFK and they go to work, they log on in the morning, they go to work and they come back, they're still logged in, and there's nothing that stops them from doing that. And I think it's a bit ridiculous, because as a kind person, I log out every time I'm not playing. I'm doing this video and I'm not logged in because I'm not a jackass like that. I just don't do that. It's not something you do. But there is no AFK feature, and it's something that Square Enix does need to solve. Otherwise, a lot of people won't be playing, and I'll be one of those. However, I do suggest that you get this game if you can. It's like, I think I bought it for £26 off some website. It's available for PS3 and PC, and it's got great cross-platform support, and it's just great. It's a really good game. There are a lot of good things that are innovative, and it makes a good MMO. It's not a WoW killer. WoW is going down the pan anyway, let's face it. It's time to move on and find new features in MMOs that are good, and I think Final Fantasy XIV has got a good grasp on how to change and revolutionise the MMO scene, which is slowly dying. It's not even slow anymore, it's dying at a rapid pace. Several million people stopped playing World of Warcraft and have gone to play other games like League of Legends. MMO is a dying scene that needs to be revolutionised, and I think Final Fantasy XIV brings a lot of good aspects that can revolutionise. So long as Square Enix can keep up the level of support that they have offered so far, I think Final Fantasy XIV will be a fantastic MMO. It just needs consistent support and consistent updates and stuff, and just the support that the game really needs all the time. It has to be consistent, otherwise MMOs do not work. If you bring out an update patch every 6 months, the MMO will go down the pan. World of Warcraft, you get a small content patch every few months now, and it's not really worth it anymore. I mean, you get your weekly update and stuff, servers are reset so you don't get any lag, but I don't feel like World of Warcraft really works well anymore. So I think Final Fantasy XIV is a good place to invest some more time if you're looking for a new MMO that will be good. I forgot to record this part before I gave the mic back to my friend, however you're going to have to bear with the poor microphone quality. It's coming straight on my webcam. Just wanted to do a bit of a sign off. Thanks for watching the video. My name is Carkeh, and you've watched my Final Fantasy XIV review. I do love this game. I'd give this game a solid, probably about an 88 out of 100. It's really good in a lot of areas. The release was a bit shaky, but that is to be expected with every new game. Nothing's ever perfect upon release, and we should really give it a chance. And I recommend you buy this game. By the way, the soundtrack is awesome. Oh, and don't forget to click and subscribe, like, and follow me on Twitter, if you want to.